For a guy whose entire personality is built on clean living, modesty, and quoting scripture, Ned Flanders has one of the wildest love lives in The Simpsons. Like, really wild. After his wife Maud died in a freak accident involving a t-shirt cannon, yes, seriously, Ned went from devoted Christian husband to Springfield's most romantically confused bachelor. He's had drunken Vegas weddings, a short-lived romance with a movie star, steamy moments with Marge Simpson, and even ghostly visits from multiple dead wives. Yeah, not exactly what you would expect from the guy who says, "Oh, killy to killy to everything." But behind the mustache, behind the Bibles, there's a man who's been through heartbreak, confusion, and even a crisis of faith, all in the name of love. So today we're breaking down the complete, chaotic journey of Ned Flanders' love life. We'll unpack the good, the bad, the extremely weird, and try to figure out one big question. Who was Ned's true soulmate? Buckle up. It's going to be one holy mess. Before all the chaos, before the ghost wives and Hollywood actresses, there was Maud. Sweet, mild-mannered Maud Flanders. She wasn't just Ned's wife. She was the foundation of his perfect, suburban, God-fearing life. Together, they raised Rod and Todd, prayed before every meal, and treated the Bible like it was Yelp for moral decisions. But here's the thing. Maud wasn't introduced until season 2, even though Ned was around since the very beginning. And when she did show up, she wasn't exactly her own character. She was more like a tool to remind Homer how much his own life sucked. Her main job? Be perfect. Look perfect. Act perfect. And give Homer one more reason to hate his neighbor. In those early seasons, the Flanders marriage was cartoonishly flawless. They were the gold standard in Springfield, right down to Maud's perfectly ironed skirts and Ned's homemade hot cocoa. In the War of the Simpsons, their marriage problems were so minor, they made Homer and Marge's issues look like a Greek tragedy. Seriously, their biggest fight was about who underlined passages in the Bible, not exactly drama material. But occasionally, cracks started to show. And when Flanders failed, Ned's dream business, the Leftorium, goes under. He loses everything: house, job, dignity. But Maud stays calm and supportive the entire time. No judgment, no breakdowns. Just, we'll get through it, Nettie. And she meant it. Same thing in Hurricane Nettie. Their house gets obliterated, and she's already planning their comeback before the dust even settles. Still, the writers began shifting her character. Slowly, Maud became less of a loving partner and more of a stereotype. She was suddenly the overbearing, judgmental church lady, spying on Marge, clutching her pearls, and acting like a moral referee. Instead of being warm and supportive, she felt cold, distant, and rigid, like a smile with no warmth behind it. And just when it looked like the show might give her some more depth, she was gone. In Alone Again, Natra Diddley, Maud gets knocked off the bleachers at a racetrack by a rogue barrage of free t-shirts. That's right, after years of being the boring but dependable half of a perfect couple, Maud dies in the most absurd, undignified way possible. A t-shirt cannon took her out, and that moment, it changed everything. It didn't just end a marriage, it cracked open Ned's entire identity. Because without Maud, Ned wasn't just a grieving husband. He was a man with no idea what came next. So how does a man like Ned Flanders, widowed, grieving, and deeply religious, cope with the sudden loss of his wife? Apparently by taking a trip to Las Vegas with Homer Simpson and waking up married to a woman named Ginger. No, seriously. In the episode Viva Ned Flanders, Ned tries to prove he's not boring after everyone mocks him for living a squeaky clean life. Turns out he's 60 years old and has never done anything fun. So Homer drags him to Vegas. The two of them gamble, drink, and eventually black out. When they wake up, they're married to two cocktail waitresses they don't even remember meeting. Ned's new wife? Ginger? Loud, flashy, probably smells like perfume and cheap margaritas. Basically the exact opposite of Maud. Now this wasn't some long-burning romance. It was sloppy, chaotic, and completely unplanned. But that's why it's so important. Because this was the first time we saw Ned act out. For once, he wasn't following the rules. He wasn't praying or preaching or quoting Leviticus. He was rebelling. And that rebellious side, it was messy, confused, and kind of heartbreaking. What makes this story more than just a joke is what it represents. Ginger wasn't just a mistake. She was a symptom, a sign that Ned was unraveling, that all the structure and righteousness he'd built his life around had collapsed, and now he was just trying to feel anything again. Later on, Ginger actually returns in Brawl in the Family, hoping to rekindle things with Ned, but it becomes painfully obvious they're not compatible. Ginger wants fun, freedom, maybe even a cigarette on the couch. Ned wants structure, God, and bedtime prayers. Their marriage dissolves about as fast as it started. But her return does serve a purpose. It proves Ned is still stuck between two worlds, the faithful, restrained man he used to be, and this new, unstable version of himself who's now learning what grief, doubt, and loneliness really feel like. And the wild part? This was just the beginning. After the chaos of Ginger and Vegas, Ned tries something harder than being single or being married, being honest with himself. Enter Rachel Jordan. She's the lead singer of a Christian rock band, warm, kind, and way more modern in her faith than Ned. She meets him at church not long after Maud's death, and unlike Ginger, Rachel isn't just a fling. She represents something real, something possible, and at first it feels like she might be the one to finally help Ned heal. She's compassionate, she listens, she's got faith. But it's a different kind of faith, less rigid, less judgmental, more human, but healing? Yeah, that's never linear. When Rachel visits Ned's home, things take a turn, fast. Ned starts projecting Maud onto her. He insists she sleep on the other side of the bed because it's Maud's side. He asks her to change her hairstyle. Then, in a moment that's equal parts sad and uncomfortable, he cuts Rachel's hair to look exactly like his dead wife. Understandably, Rachel is horrified, and she leaves because it's not about her, it's about Maud. Ned isn't ready, not even close, and for the first time he realizes that. What comes next is one of the most vulnerable arcs Ned ever gets. He finds Maud's old sketchbook, and inside it is her final dream, to build a Christian amusement park called Praiseland. So he builds it, in her honor, every ride, every corner, a shrine to his grief, and maybe his guilt. The park is a total disaster, of course. Between weird Bible-themed rides and a gas leak that causes hallucinations, mistaken for miracles, the whole thing spirals out of control. But the point wasn't the park. The point was closure. At the end of the episode, Rachel comes back, not to rekindle romance, but to help Ned erase Maud's literal dent in the bed, symbolically letting go. It's quiet, sad, but healing. Rachel Jordan never becomes Ned's long-term partner. She wasn't meant to be. She was there to show him that it's okay to grieve, that moving on doesn't mean forgetting, and that love isn't always about who comes next, but about who helps you carry the weight of what you've lost. Just when you think Ned Flanders has learned to take things slow, he dives headfirst into his most unexpected relationship yet, with a Hollywood actress. Yeah, you heard that right. In A Star is Born Again, Springfield is hosting a beachside jellyfish dance, because of course it is, and Ned finds himself without a date. Instead of wallowing, he heads to the leftorium to reorganize paperwork. Classic Ned move. But then fate steps in, or rather Sarah Sloane does. She's glamorous, famous, and way out of Ned's league. Think red carpets, film sets, tabloid covers. And yet she's completely charmed by his awkward honesty, his polite manners, and yes, even his mustache. Sarah asks him out. And Ned? He stammers, blushes, and somehow lands a date with a literal movie star. Things move fast, like really fast. The two go out, fall for each other, and before you know it, boom, they're making out on a hilltop overlooking Springfield. It's sweet, romantic, and completely surreal. But here's where it gets complicated. Sarah wants Ned to come to Hollywood with her, to leave behind his quiet, church-going life and join her in the world of celebrities, flashing lights, and premiere parties. At first he's tempted. He even fantasizes about a new life in LA, complete with glitz, temptation, and moral panic. But deep down, Ned knows he doesn't belong in that world. And even though Sarah offers to move to Springfield instead, things start to fall apart. At a concert, she shows up in a revealing dress and Ned panics. He's not just overwhelmed by the attention, they clearly live in different worlds. And even though they sleep together that night, yes, that happened. It only highlights how far Ned has strayed from who he used to be. The next morning, Sarah asks him to marry her, or at least move forward with the relationship. But Ned can't do it. He turns her down, gently but firmly, and she walks away, understanding but heartbroken. Here's what's so important about Sarah Sloane. She wasn't a joke. She wasn't a mistake. She was Ned's first real attempt at dating again. Not just reacting to loss, but choosing someone new. And it forced him to confront who he was becoming. Not the grieving husband, not the Vegas party boy, but a man learning how to balance his values with his desires. Sarah challenged him, emotionally, sexually, spiritually, and even though it didn't last, their relationship proved something huge, that Ned could evolve. He didn't have to stay stuck in grief or tradition. He could grow, change, try new things. He could step into unfamiliar territory and come back stronger. And more importantly, he could finally start making peace with his past and open the door to whatever came next. After Sarah Sloane, you'd think Ned might take a breather. maybe slow things down, but nope. Springfield's most eligible widower dives straight back into the dating pool. And let's just say the water is freezing. First up, Lindsay Nagel. Efficient, business savvy, emotionally unavailable. Lindsay treats dating like a PowerPoint presentation. Logical, practical, and completely soul-sucking. She and Ned go on a date and she spends most of it prioritizing her fax machine. Literally. She'd rather send a document than connect with a human. Sparks? None. Chemistry? Less than 0. It's the romantic equivalent of a dial tone. Then there's Diane, who seems promising at first, but she comes with 2 major red flags: deep, unresolved mommy issues, and a disturbing level of attachment to her dog. Like, bring a dog on the date levels of attachment. Ned, bless his heart, tries to roll with it, but when he realizes he's the third wheel in his own relationship, he bails. Gracefully, of course, on a literal swan boat. These aren't just one-off jokes. These misfires say something deeper. Ned is completely out of sync with modern dating. He doesn't understand it, doesn't like it, and honestly, he's just not built for casual flings or quirky first date chaos. He wants connection, stability, someone to raise his kids with, not someone who brings emotional baggage and a pug in a stroller. But these failed attempts also reveal something else. Ned still hasn't really moved on. Not from Maud, not from the life he lost. Every woman he dates, he compares to her. And every time they fall short, whether emotionally or morally, he pulls back. There's even a moment where Ned briefly questions God for taking Maud in the first place. That's huge. For someone who built his entire identity on faith, suddenly wondering if it's all meaningless, that's rock bottom. Even if it only lasts a moment, it shows how deep his loneliness runs. The reality is, Ned isn't just struggling to find the right woman. He's struggling to figure out who he is without one. And until he can answer that, every new relationship, no matter how promising, ends the same way. Awkward, empty, and over before dessert. It was bound to happen eventually. For years, Ned Flanders and Marge Simpson lived side by side, sharing fences, chit-chatting over bushes, occasionally swapping casserole dishes. But somewhere along the way, something started to shift. Subtle at first, then downright uncomfortable. Let's go back to a streetcar named Marge in season 4. Marge lands the lead role in a community theater production, and who ends up playing her onstage husband? Yep, Ned. The 2 rehearse lines together, and while the show plays it light, there's a moment where Ned aggressively throws Marge onto a bed. Fully in character, of course, but still, a little spark of tension flickers to life. Then we jump ahead to Diatribe of a Mad Housewife in season 15, and things get way less subtle. Marge writes a romantic novel featuring herself as the heroine, Homer as a selfish brute, and Flanders as the sensitive, idealized love interest. Not symbolic, not implied. She literally writes a fantasy where she falls for Ned. Springfield takes notice. People start teasing Homer. Even Lisa points out that the story is a little too specific. And while Marge plays it off as fiction, you can't help but wonder, was this her way of expressing something she couldn't say out loud? But the biggest red flag, or maybe green light, depending on how you see it, comes in The Devil Wears Nada. In that episode, Marge poses for a sexy calendar to boost her confidence and ends up getting way more attention than she expected. Meanwhile, Homer's too busy and stressed at work to give her any affection. Enter Ned Flanders. He comes over for dinner. They're both alone. They eat strawberries and cream, and just when things are about to cross the line, like really cross the line, Marge sees her wedding photo reflected in Ned's glasses and pulls back. Twice, actually. The first time, it's a kitchen timer that saves the moment. The second time, it's her conscience. So, what do we make of all this? Marge never actually cheats, but the show makes it clear, if Homer keeps neglecting her, she might start looking for something he can't give. And what's fascinating is that Ned doesn't even push for it. He's just there, kind, polite, safe. Everything Homer isn't in those moments. There's a strange emotional chemistry between them, and it shows up in small ways. Marge siding with Ned in arguments, defending him against Homer, even calling him the perfect neighbor. It's subtle, but it's enough to make you wonder, if Homer ever disappeared, would Marge and Ned become a thing? Well, The Simpsons actually answers that kind of. In Flanders' Ladder, a flash forward reveals that after Homer's death, Marge and Ned do get married. It's played off like a joke, but given everything we've seen, it doesn't feel impossible. The show loves to toy with this idea. They never let it fully happen, but they keep planting seeds, just enough to make it feel almost real. Marge and Ned probably aren't soulmates, but they're close enough that in an alternate timeline they might have been, and that possibility alone adds a whole new layer to Ned's love life. Because when even Marge Simpson is almost in the picture, you know things have gotten complicated. If there's one woman who truly shook up Ned Flanders' world after Maude, it wasn't a one-night Vegas bride or a movie star, or even Marge Simpson. It was Edna Krabappel. And the craziest part? Their relationship didn't begin because of brilliant writing or long-term planning. It began because the fans voted for it to happen. Let's rewind. Back in Alone Again, naturally, Edna and Ned actually went on a date. But it was a mess. Edna only agreed to go out with him to make Principal Skinner jealous, and Ned, still mourning Maude, wasn't remotely ready for anything serious. The two parted ways, and that should have been the end of it. Fast forward to season 22's The Ned-liest Catch, and the story picks up in the most unexpected way. After Edna falls from a building, because of course she does, Ned literally catches her in his arms. It's romantic, ridiculous, and oddly kind of perfect. Sparks fly, the two begin dating, and it actually feels natural. Edna brings something to Ned that no other woman ever has: challenge. She's blunt, worldly, flawed, the opposite of Maude in almost every way, and that's what makes her so important. With Edna, Ned has to drop the perfect act. He can't rely on faith and family values alone. He has to show up as a real person, with doubts, fears, and occasionally judgment. Their biggest clash happens when Ned learns just how many people Edna's dated in the past. Skinner, comic book guy, sideshow Bob, even Bart, sort of. Ned freaks out. He can't reconcile her past with the image of the pure, wholesome partner he's always imagined. But Edna doesn't back down. She calls him out for being sanctimonious. She tells him straight up, she doesn't need forgiveness, she needs acceptance. And for once, Ned listens. What happens next is a bold move by the showrunners. They break the fourth wall and ask us, the audience, if Ned and Edna should stay together. Viewers are invited to vote on the official Simpsons website. The result? A massive yes. Fans overwhelmingly support Nedna. In season 23, it's revealed that they got married off-screen, in secret. No big wedding. No long build-up, just two people choosing to be together, quietly and on their own terms. And for a while it really works. Edna moves in and starts helping raise Rod and Todd. She encourages Ned to let them go to public school, introduces them to pop culture, and gives them a slightly more normal childhood. Ned resists at first, but slowly begins to compromise. That's the magic of their relationship. It's not about perfection, it's about growth. Edna doesn't fit Ned's mold, but she reshapes it, and in turn, Ned gives her the kind of loyalty and kindness she's never had. He respects her, he values her, and when they clash, they don't implode. They figure it out. Unfortunately, that growth gets cut short. In 2013, voice actress Marsha Wallace, who played Edna, passed away. Out of respect, the writers chose not to recast her. Instead, they quietly retired Edna's character. In a later episode, we see Ned wearing a black armband and looking wistfully at a framed photo of Edna on the windowsill. No words, just a moment of silence and heartbreak. It's one of the most emotional scenes in the entire series. Not just because we lost a beloved character, but because we saw Ned lose someone he truly loved again. This wasn't just another failed fling or comic relief pairing. Ned and Edna had real substance. They weren't perfect, but they fit, and in many ways she helped him become the most human version of himself we've ever seen. She challenged him, grounded him, made him better, and that's soulmate territory. You'd think after losing two wives, Maude and Edna, Ned Flanders might take a break from dating. Maybe focus on raising Rod and Todd, trimming hedges, or quoting scripture. But no, the Simpsons writers had other plans, starting with ghosts. In several later episodes, both Maude and Edna return, not in flashbacks, but as actual spirits. One appears beside him at dinner, another shares screen time in the afterlife. Sometimes they're loving, sometimes judgmental, always awkward. It's like Ned's stuck in some weird emotional triangle between heaven and Springfield. And as if ghost wives weren't strange enough, the show starts playing fast and loose with Ned's future love life. In the flash-forward episode Flanders' Ladder, we see a vision of Ned marrying, or at least dating, every single woman in town. Seriously, one by one, Springfield's ladies line up, and somehow Ned ends up romantically linked to all of them. Was it a dream? A joke? A dark satire of his nice guy image? Probably all three, but the implication is clear. Ned's love life has become a Springfield-wide running gag. Then there's Holidays of Future Past, which gives us what feels like the most canon future. In it, we learn that Ned eventually remarries Maude. Yes, the original. It's sweet, sentimental, and kind of confusing considering she's been gone for decades. But hey, it's The Simpsons. Continuity is flexible, and apparently so is the afterlife. And just when you think the writers are done messing with Ned's romantic destiny, they give us Barbara Belfry. In a parody-heavy two-part episode titled A Serious Flanders, Ned meets Barbara, the head of an orphanage who looks, dresses, and even talks like Maude. Midwestern accent? Check. Old-fashioned sensibilities? Check. Churchy undertones? Double check. She even wears the same color scheme as Maude when she first appears. It's clear Barbara is a deliberate echo, a satire of Ned's type. But unlike previous love interests, she's part of a gritty, prestige drama-style storyline that parodies shows like Fargo. The tone is different. The aesthetic is different. And Barbara, she feels less like a love interest and more like a character designed to highlight how stuck Ned really is. She's not real, not in the way Edna or Rachel or Sarah Sloane were. She's a reflection of Ned's inability to break out of a pattern, a reminder that deep down, he keeps chasing the same ideal over and over again. Sweet, religious, traditional, and maybe a little too familiar. So what do all these ghosts, futures, and strange flings mean? They paint a picture of a man who's constantly torn between who he used to be and who he's trying to become. Someone haunted, literally and emotionally, by the past. Someone who keeps trying to rewrite the same story in different fonts. From being the perfect husband to becoming the town's accidental Casanova, Ned's love life stops being a simple character arc and becomes a full-blown identity crisis. And through it all, one question lingers. Has Ned ever truly moved on? Or is he just rearranging the same pieces, hoping one day they'll finally feel right? So, after all the drama, the detours, the ghosts, and the glitter, who was it? Who was Ned Flanders really meant to be with? Was it Maude, the original love of his life? The woman who matched him in faith, structure, and suburban sensibility? Or was it Rachel Jordan, the Christian rock singer, who gently nudged him to face his grief and start healing? Maybe it was Sarah Sloane, the Hollywood actress who pushed him out of his comfort zone and showed him he could evolve emotionally and romantically. Could it have been Marge, the neighbor who, in another timeline, might have been more than just the nice lady next door? Or was it someone else entirely? Here's the thing. Maude was Ned's past, his foundation. She represented who he used to be, stable, unquestioning, obedient. But after she died, Ned changed, slowly, painfully. And the more he opened himself up to new experiences, the more we saw a different man begin to emerge. That's why it wasn't Maude. It wasn't Marge either. That chemistry, it was based on fantasy and timing. A temporary emotional gap, not a foundation for something real. Sarah was growth. Rachel was healing. Ginger was chaos, but none of them stayed. Only one woman challenged Ned, accepted him, and stuck around until life had other plans. Edna Crabapple. She didn't just accept Ned's flaws, she called them out. She didn't worship him, she challenged him, and instead of shrinking back into a quiet, submissive role like Maude, Edna met Ned as an equal. A little brash, a little broken, but very real. With Edna, Ned grew. As a partner, as a father, as a man. She helped him break out of the overly sanitized, squeaky clean mold he'd been trapped in for decades. And in return, Ned gave her something she'd never really had: unconditional support and respect. That wasn't just love, that was balance. And that's why, out of all the relationships, flings, fantasies, and ghostly visits, Edna Krabappel was Ned's true soulmate. Not because they were perfect, but because they weren't. And in that imperfection, they found something real, something honest, something earned. So what do you think? Did Ned peak with Edna, or is there someone else who could have been a better match? Was Marge really off limits? And what about that whole Ned marries everyone future? Canon or comedy? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Springfield's most complicated widower, hit that like button, like it's a t-shirt cannon aimed straight at your heart. Thanks for watching, and remember, even the holiest man in town can have a hell of a love life.